So, hi everyone, this is Kelly Whitley from FLATSO Secretariat in Costa Rica. I have with me today via Skype our special guest, Ethan Zuckerman, who is the director for MIT's Center for Civic Media. Hi, Ethan, how are you?
Hi, everybody.
So Ethan, as you know, a part of what FLATSO is taking a look at some of the e-democracy initiatives in Latin America, and as a part of doing that, looking to connect with international experts just to glean from them their insights and experiences to ultimately inform the work that we're doing specifically in Latin America. So with that being said, can you talk a little bit about some of your experiences in this field and your background in the area?
Sure. So Center for Civic Media works at the intersection between participatory media and civic life. So we're interested in finding ways that people can use participatory media, whether that's blogs, whether that's video, whether that's SMS phones, to access information, organize events in their communities, find different ways to get involved with civic life. Sometimes that means getting involved with protests, sometimes that means mobilizing people to the polls, sometimes it simply means learning and engaging with legislative and other civic processes. Much of my work in the past has been around civic media in the developing world. So I'm the co-founder of a group called Global Voices, which has been working for about 7 years now to use blogs and other civic media to make it possible to hear the voices of people all throughout the developing world. Prior to that, I did some work directly on e-government projects, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, with a group called Geek Corps, which tried to make it possible for people involved with the tech industry to get on airplanes and come work with local technical people in the developing world, expanding skill sets, particularly towards building out e-government systems and projects around the world.
It sounds like you've certainly been busy. So with that kind of background and set of experiences in mind, can you talk about some of the interesting tendencies that you've noticed, whether it's through what you've been doing in the U.S. with MIT or some of your previous work in Africa and in other countries?
One thing I would identify as a tendency in this space is that there's an assumption people often make that governments have all the information they need, and that the goal is to get governments to release the information and somehow that transforms civic participation in one fashion or another. And I think that's probably false on at least two levels. I think in many cases, particularly in developing nations, it's a much more challenging problem to assemble that set of data. So just to give a for instance around that, friends of mine in Nigeria have been very interested in questions of illegal construction in Lagos. And you would hope that the city of Lagos had really good records of construction permits, would be able to sort of check who was building, check against the permit system, and shut down illegal construction. But that's not the case. And so instead, what my friends are doing is setting up a project where people are going around with mobile phones, looking for construction sites that look to be dangerous, documenting them, and then asking the government if they would then go through the process of making sure that these places are properly permitted, and if they're not properly permitted, go and shut down dangerous construction. What's interesting about this is that first, that data probably wasn't available in the first place. The permitting process isn't moving that quickly. Second, by choosing to participate in this, you get invested in this issue in a very different way than if you simply read a story that says, much of the construction in Lagos is illegal. You become, in the process of picking up that mobile phone and getting involved with that effort, an advocate and a participant in the process. So I look a lot to some of the work done by Tom Steinberg and the folks from My Society in the UK, who really are focusing on ways to build out e-government projects that are focused around citizen involvement, not just about sharing and releasing information from government.
That's great. So, kind of having said that, what are some of the greatest challenges that you think, again, whether kind of looking at the work domestically in the U.S. or in other countries, to achieving kind of the ideal type, kind of full citizen engagement and full government engagement in kind of a digital consultation or participatory, kind of process?
I think problems tend to be more about participation than they are necessarily about digital. And what I would say is that when you look at the U.S. right now, there's an enormous argument going on today about SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which is a very worrisome bill for people who take the internet seriously. And the way that bill is being drafted is it's being drafted in a congressional committee by legislators who don't know very much about the issues and who've been heavily influenced by Hollywood lobbyists. And you have people from the outside sort of yelling and essentially saying, please don't do this, you're going to destroy the internet. It's not a technological problem. You can imagine a process where that legislative drafting process is opened up to citizen input in one fashion or another. You can imagine well-informed citizens trying to take seriously the issue of stopping online piracy. But that's not how that process is working. So I don't think it's the digital aspect that's missing. There actually been some very effective digital protests around this. Mm-hmm. What's missing is essentially a participatory process that lets citizens be involved more directly than simply elected legislators. So I think this is where we often go off the rails, where we think about e-government and transparency. You need to be building highly participatory government systems if you then hope for e-participation within them. And in many ways, starting with e-participation may not be the right place to start. What we actually want to think about is how do you build a legislative process, or how do you build some sort of consultative process? And then how do you figure out how to use various information technologies to include more people in that process?
Great. Well, kind of having discussed the challenges, are there some interesting case studies or projects that you either worked on or heard about that, as governments and civil society and others start to really turn to this area in earnest, that could be, a good example for them to look to in their work?
There's certainly been some very good work in Brazil done on national levels with trying to make bills, primarily bills about education, open to participation and sort of group drafting. And it's been encouraging, although at the same time it's a little discouraging to see that you end up with a few dozen people participating. It doesn't tend to be massive scale participation. I think we're very, very early in these processes. I tend to feel like almost all the projects that literally deal with collective decision making have generally been pretty primitive. They've sort of used technology as a gimmick rather than as a genuine form of involvement. My guess is what you're going to start to see is ground-up projects where people are trying to collect a set of data in their locality, whether it's something as simple as fixing my street in the UK, or whether it's a project like the one that I mentioned in Lagos, and use that as a way to generate a data set collectively, with the hopes that that then turns into a process of people who are concerned and engaged within the topic. So rather than, I don't think the way to approach this is by saying, let's take one of 500 bills we passed this year and let's make it open to outside participation via the internet. I think you actually want to go the other direction. I think the question is, how do you find a circumstance in which people are willing to do the work of generating the data, working together on the ideas, and then having identified a problem, look for ways to jointly solve it. I think that's potentially what will find a good direction in this.
A part of what we've been focused on is, in our work at this early stage, is really looking at kind of government actions and strategies. But what role do you think civil society plays or should play in e-democracy work?
My hope is that civil society becomes a space where citizens can organize and say, these are questions that we're particularly concerned about. These are questions where we are willing to do work as citizens jointly on trying to understand the dynamics of the situation and trying to find fixes for it. I think one of the ways to think about this is look to some of these crowdsourced platforms like a community, where people are getting together to document an issue that they collectively care about. Can civil society organizations then use the momentum of people who are involved with that documentation process and somehow grow from that to turn into a movement, and then use that as a way to say, hey, governments, we've got a group of very engaged citizens here. They've been demonstrating their willingness to participate from early on. How do we work with them to move forward?
And our final question today, which is probably a very logical final question, but what predictions do you have for the future of e-democracy? Whether it's in the U.S. or internationally or globally, or what?
I think my short-term prediction is that we're going to stop using very general terms like e-democracy. And I think we're going to try to break it apart into much more manageable pieces. I think you're going to see increasing e-service delivery. We've already seen really good examples of this in India, where the government finds ways to lower corruption by taking government systems and bringing them online. It's simply harder to seek grants when people are trying to get a birth certificate when you make that electronic process. So I think that's going to happen very, very quickly. I think we're going to start seeing these sort of data collection and lobbying projects come into play. And then I think the sort of questions that it sounds like you're most interested in around deliberation and really participation in sort of legislative drafting and such, I think that's likely to become its own subset of this field